Hello, and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm your County Commissioner, Josh Kerns, and today we are discussing a great organization in our community, Joya Child Family Development. My guest today is Colleen Fuchs, Executive Director of Joya. Colleen, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here. Could you give us, our audience, a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name is Colleen Thompson Fuchs. Thompson's my maiden name, and I grew up here in Spokane. I've lived here my whole life. I grew up down in the Gonzaga University neighborhood and still live there on the block where I grew up. Third generation right there.
All right.
So I've been around a long time here in Spokane.
All right. Well, how did you become the director of Joya?
It's a little bit of a long story. I'll try to cut it short.
Okay.
But I have my youngest son to thank for that, actually. So I did my student teaching at Joya almost 30 years ago as an early childhood special ed teacher. And then I have 4 boys, and I should have added that I've been married for 30 years in my introduction to myself. But the youngest of my 4 boys had a stroke after he was born. And so I knew Joya as a special ed teacher, and then suddenly I was there as a parent. And so when Tommy is my youngest, when he was in the 8th grade, he was assigned some community service, a community service project, and he decided to do public speaking for Joya, which was still the Guild School at the time. So I got reconnected at that time, and it was always my dream to work there. And it's not a place that many people ever leave. Most of the staff have been there 25 years or more.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and the timing was just right, and I was able to go to work there officially 4 years ago. And then a year ago, when our executive director retired, he asked me to step in.
Oh, fantastic. You made a reference to Joya hasn't always been called Joya. You know, many people know it as the Guild School. Can you explain kind of how and why the name has evolved?
Sure. We went through a rebranding. It's been almost a year and a half now. And when we started our capital campaign, we actually hired a consulting group, Campbell and Company of Seattle, and they came in and did a whole study with us. And they advised that they heard feedback from a lot of people in the community that our name, and it was a long name, it was the Spokane Guild School and Neuromuscular Center, that a lot of people didn't know what guilds meant. That was, for a lot of people, it implied a union or something along those lines. And then Neuromuscular Center kind of scared a lot of people who referred to us. That was not a familiar term to people. So we decided it was time to rename, and Joya means jewel or treasure, and so that is very much how we see the children that we serve, as treasures waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, well, it certainly is a jewel and a treasure for this community, absolutely, as well. You know, I've seen Joya firsthand while taking a tour, but you know, for many of the people in the community that may not know what happens at Joya, you know, it's so much more than just therapy. Can you give us a little bit of background about what all happens at Joya?
Absolutely, it definitely is more than therapy, and one of the reasons we wanted to make sure that our name included family is that we do as much to support the family as we do to support the child with individual therapy. So we assign a family resources coordinator to every family as soon as they're referred to us, and that person is really to help the family decide what supports they need in order to successfully get their child the assistance that they need. And so it could be housing, it could be food, it could be access to medical care or application for Medicaid or any, basically whatever they need, we help them apply for it or find out information about it. And then we have an amazing therapy program. We go out to people's homes. For our infants and youngest toddlers, we go into the home to work with the family so that they know how best to support their child in their everyday routines, and you know, how do I work in a little bit of therapy here or position my child this way because it's better for their development. And then we have groups. So when they are ready for some socialization and they hit that toddler full steam ahead time, we have groups that really, when they come in and join groups, we see this explosion of language and socialization amongst the kids.
That is incredible.
It is a pretty amazing place.
Yeah. Can you explain to our viewers why is early intervention so important?
Those birth to 3 years are just this time of brain plasticity like no other time. So as I mentioned with my son, for example, having had a stroke when he was 16 days old, that it was a rather catastrophic stroke, and his is a really good example of an infant brain has the ability to remap all those pathways around that damaged area in a way that a brain beyond age 3 just doesn't have. It's kind of a use it or lose it time.
Okay.
And so once they reach age 3, if they haven't used a particular part of the brain starts to sort of slough off the unused parts. So if we can engage that brain during that time, we can make the most impact.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
It's exciting.
It is. It is. Who's eligible for the services at Joya?
That is a great question because a lot of people think they're only eligible if they have a financial need,
Okay.
and that's not the case. So any child can be referred, they can be referred by their primary care physician, by their own parent, by a grandparent, by anyone. They can call us and say, I have a developmental concern about this child, and they come in and we schedule an evaluation. We evaluate the child in all areas of development, and if they have a 25% delay or more in one area or more of development, then they qualify for services through the state's early support for infants and toddlers. So about 70% of our families are Medicaid eligible. The remainder of our families have some private insurance, and we do work with families to make sure that whatever coverage they have or whatever they need, we can assist them.
Okay, and that was actually going to be my follow-up question. You know, you've named so many different services that are there, and I would assume that they could be rather costly. And you know, how do you work with the families if maybe they don't have the means to pay for the services?
Absolutely, very much so. Particularly for our privately insured families who have cost shares and copays, and you might know about like your own insurance, for example, you may have a limit of the number of therapy services. So say you need PT and you get 12 visits a year. It could be 12, you know, every coverage plan is different, but that's a pretty typical 12 or 16 visits a year is pretty normal. So if you have a child with cerebral palsy who needs physical therapy at least weekly, you're going to run out of therapy coverage in the first few weeks because you may have also speech therapy or feeding, and all of those count as a separate therapy visit. So we have a financial assistance program to help families with their cost shares and copays so that we don't ever have to turn away a family for their inability to pay.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
The Spokane community has supported that for 60 years, so it's amazing.
Yes, we have an amazing community, that's for sure. You know, the COVID pandemic has hit all organizations very hard and has changed the way we've all had to deliver services. How has Joya adapted over the last 6 months?
Well, it's been tricky. I have to say, we have amazingly resilient families and staff because we pivoted to telehealth within about 24, maybe 36 hours. So the day in March, I want to say it was March 13th, when we got the announcement that the schools were going to be closed. We kicked it into high gear over the weekend and started testing out telehealth services. That wasn't something that we were able to use before. There were actually, it was only in rural areas that you could use telehealth for early intervention. So the state jumped in and kind of opened some things up so that we were able to access telehealth, and by Tuesday we were seeing families using telehealth and had gotten laptops out to families and Chromebooks and things for families that didn't have access.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty incredible. And a huge shift to go from working, hands-on with infants and toddlers to suddenly being on the other side of a screen and therapists coaching families.
What does the demand for services look like right now? I mean, have you seen an uptick in the demand for early intervention?
Well, it's an interesting question because actually our enrollment statewide in early support for infants and toddlers has been dropping. And it's not because the need is decreased. So there's more need than ever. Children are still being born, and some of those children have delays, premature infants, all of those things are still happening. So really it means that children aren't getting referred for services. So it may be because children aren't getting to their well child visits, or for whatever reason, providers may not realize that we're open.
Okay.
But it is concerning because that means about 25%, it's dropped about 25%, and that means those are kids who aren't getting services during that really critical first 3 years. So we're looking to spread the word that we are open and able to accommodate those children.
Well, I hope we are able to help with that with this show.
I hope so.
Yeah. What would you say to parents that have just learned that they will have a child that will be born with a disability or a delay?
That's a really good question. It's hard to know the right thing to say to anybody. I guess the first thing that I would say is I know exactly where you can go that someone will understand what you're going through, and you can share your fears and concerns and hopes, and we will listen and we'll walk that path with you at Joya. And there's, you can take a breath, there's somebody who can help.
Okay. All right. This year, Joya is celebrating a major milestone: 60 years since the Guild ladies started caring for kids in our community. What are you doing to celebrate?
Well, we're having our first big virtual event. It's called Hearts of Joya, and we are honoring the ladies of the guilds. So there were, I don't know if you know the story, but in the 1960s, there were a number of ladies' guilds that were formed that came together to, they saw a need in the community for respite care. And respite care meaning a break for families who have children with disability, some time to go get a haircut or go to the grocery store or do, those things that we all need to do without hauling a child in a walker and a wheelchair and all the equipment and everything with them. And so none of those ladies had a child with a disability, but they saw that there was a need for that in the community. And so I don't think they knew at the time that they were doing something that would transform all these years later into this amazing service for families and would serve all the children and families that it has through the years.
Yeah. Our community has so many great universities. Do you partner with any of our region's universities whether it's to offer internships or experience for students that are going into the profession or early childhood education?
Absolutely. Early childhood education, yes, we partner with Gonzaga and Whitworth. There's also WSU has a human development major. We partner with them. We also partner with Eastern WSU, UW, all of the universities, as well as the community college are partners in educating the next round of professionals that will go into these health sciences fields and education.
All right. Do those individuals end up usually coming back and working full time at Joya?
When we're really lucky, yes. So our last two hires, a speech therapist and a physical therapist, interned with us for 12 weeks first, which is great because it's like an on-the-job interview. And then we were lucky enough to be able to hire them.
Ah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how is Joya planning for the future? I know that the goal is to serve more children, and that you do have a new facility that should be coming online in short order. Could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Sure. The new building is really exciting. It's a beautiful new building that's designed for families with infants and toddlers, and so that is a great thing. The location is amazing. It's in the University District, so it's very central. But what's best about the building is not the building itself, it's what the building will allow us to do. And we will be able to serve more children and expand into some new offerings in our program that we haven't been able to because of the sort of confines of the building that we're in currently.
Okay, all right. Could you tell us what would you say is the biggest impact Joya has had on the community?
You know, that's a tricky question to answer because about half of the children who graduate from our program at age 3, I guess I should have said that really clearly. We serve children up to age 3. They graduate the day before their 3rd birthday. And so about half of those children, graduate at or before age 3 with age-appropriate skills. And for that group of kiddos who go on, we're like the best kept secret because if we've done our job really well, you'll never even know that they had services or need services. For the other half of the children, what we do really, really well is we set them up for success in school. So those children then are kindergarten ready, they enter school ready to go, are more likely to find success in school, to graduate from school, to be able to go on and support themselves in their adult years. And so that's an amazing impact to have on a community.
Yeah, and I'm sure extremely rewarding.
It is incredibly rewarding, yeah.
Well, I know we have a video of yours queued up. Could you give us a little introduction?
Yeah, interestingly, it's a great example of both of the things that I just told you. A child who grows up and goes on to be an adult who you might see walking down the street and not know, like, that's somebody who struggled when they were little. And then an adorable little girl named Journey. And her name speaks for itself. Like it's the perfect name for her. You will love hearing about her journey.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's roll the tape.
Journey is a very special and very unique little girl. She's so much fun. She has Star syndrome. She was diagnosed pretty early on. There's only 10 other people known to have it right now in the world. Journey would not be here giving fist bumps, sitting upright, playing around if it wasn't for Joya.
My name is Alex Lafreese, and I am a proud alumnus of Joya. So I was born with a congenital cataract, and that led to several developmental delays. When my parents took me to a pediatric neurologist around the age of 18 months, he said that it was very unlikely that I would function at a normal level. And so we came to Joya, and 18 months later, I had reached my age-appropriate milestones and never looked back.
We served 303 children last year, about 150 at any one given time. And since new babies are being born every day, and kids are turning 3 every day, so we have a turnover rate of about 1/3 a year.
I think what sets this place apart is the approach. It really is. It's all in your attitude. So you know it's going to be hard, right? But you get a choice on how you're going to tackle that journey. And the mindset of this place, and it's all being centered around hope, is really where it starts.
The need in the community has never been greater. Despite the advances in modern medicine and therapies, we actually have more children qualifying for services at Joya than ever before.
We outgrew this building about 10 years ago. You can see if you walk around, we're just, the equipment that we use and so much of what we do, it doesn't fit in tidy little corners. And it wasn't built for infants and toddlers and their families.
Now is the time with the growing demand for birth to 3 services and the results that we know that our program delivers, and the fact that we do it without regard for families' ability to pay. Now is really the time for a new building
Joya has already purchased a wonderful piece of property in the University District. It's beautiful. It's right on the Spokane River. That will provide numerous opportunities for collaboration with the universities. It's just an incredibly welcoming place for kids and their families. It's also going to allow us to build the facility that we need from the ground up.
It's really built with flexibility in mind to be able to individualize and meet the needs of every family. We have limited capacity for interns to serve here because our space is limited, and so we hope to be able to double that as well with the new building.
I'm excited for the new building and that it's actually going to fit in with kids with disabilities in mind, because that's a big deal. You don't really think about it until you have a kid that's disabled, like how things should be made or could be made to have it accessible to everybody.
We are the only neurodevelopmental center of excellence in Eastern Washington. But imagine taking that and putting this center of excellence in the university district and then inviting in the universities, the different medical centers, and the opportunity for that collaboration. It's that vision for the future.
I envision not only a bigger, beautiful building in this wonderful area that's just booming with young children with special needs and their families and students who are learning to work with families, and I also envision a fully integrated community resource for families with young children.
I think Joya's best years are ahead of it. The name Joya comes from joy or gem. What's really important about the name is Joya Child and Family Development. Our services and our care goes beyond just the child and incorporates the family as well.
My daughter would not have the quality of life that she gets to experience if it wasn't for Joya. My family wouldn't have gotten the support that we have if it wasn't for Joya.
Joya is hope.
Joya is hope.
Joya is full of hope.
Joya is irreplaceable.
Well, that was a fantastic video. Really gave a great visual of the incredible work that you do at Joya. I did want to talk a little more about the new facility. From what I understand, there's a capital campaign that's underway, and if members of our community want to help make that building a reality, to have a part of that, what information would you have for them?
Well, they can go to our website, joya.org, and see more of the pictures that were shown in the video, the renderings of the new building and things. But it's an $18.5 million campaign.
Okay.
And we are at a very important point in this campaign right now because we intend to break ground in March. And in order to do that, we need to raise $2.6 million more in equity to move forward. So we have this goal right now, and we are trying to pour it on. Obviously, COVID has made fundraising an additional challenge, being able to meet with people and things. So we would love to share information about what we're doing. Also, the timeline is hugely important. I didn't mention before, but should have. We don't own the building that we're in currently. Spokane Public Schools owns it. We've been in there for 30 years, and our lease is up in June of 22. So in order for us to build and be able to move in time to free up that building, because Spokane Public Schools has some plans for that building, we need to raise that final bit for us to be able to break ground. So yes, we would love to share information with anybody who's interested. Please spread the word.
Okay. Can I ask how much additional capacity will this give you? How many more children will you be able to help?
So we've been serving an average of about 300 children a year, about 150 children a month, but then it's not quite like school. Children sort of roll in and roll out over the course of the year as they turn 3, and then we have more children come in. So we're looking to double our capacity. So 600 children a year and their families would receive services through our program.
That's fantastic. Yeah. As we come to our final moments of the show, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience?
I just want to thank you and the other commissioners and the community. We serve all of Spokane County, and we are very grateful for the support that we've had from all of you, as well as just all of the families in the county, whether they've received our services or not. We have really appreciated just all the tremendous support we've gotten through the years, and we hope that continues.
All right. Well, Colleen, it looks like we are just about out of time. So, folks, I would like to thank Colleen Fuchs for joining us today, and also to thank her for the incredible work that she and Joya are doing for our community. As a reminder, a video of today's Spotlight can be accessed on our Spokane County homepage and our Spokane County YouTube channel. You can also listen to this on the go by downloading it as a podcast on either SoundCloud or iTunes apps. Just go to either of those app stores and search Spokane County. I'm your County Commissioner Josh Kerns, and thank you for joining me today on Spokane County Spotlight.